The flashing red and blue lights lit up my entire front yard, bouncing off the wet pavement and the neighbors' windows. Karen stood on the curb with her arms crossed, chin raised like a queen in her kingdom, pointing at my truck parked in my own driveway. "That's my parking spot," she shouted. "He's breaking HOA rules again." The cop glanced between us, confusion on his face. Then he looked down at the county map and said flatly, "Ma'am, this property belongs to him." I swear I could see the moment her confidence cracked. That was the night I realized my neighbor wasn't just controlling, she was hiding something much bigger. When I moved into Willow Creek Estates, I thought I'd found peace. A quiet cul-de-sac, tall pine trees, a view of the hills, the kind of neighborhood where people waved when they passed. The first day, Karen Hernandez showed up with that stiff smile of hers and a clipboard clutched to her chest. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said, eyeing my truck. "We like to keep things orderly around here." I thought she was just another Type A neighbor until she started showing up uninvited. First, it was a friendly reminder about bringing in trash cans before noon. Then it was, "Your mailbox color doesn't match the community palette." I laughed it off, but she didn't. Every week, another complaint, another warning. And then, one morning, I caught her measuring my driveway with a tape measure. "Checking for HOA compliance," she said when I stepped outside. "Compliance for what?" She just smiled that smug smile and scribbled something down. That's when I realized this woman wasn't nosy, she was power-hungry. A few days later, she showed up again, tapping the ground with her high heel. "You can't park here," she said. "This section belongs to the HOA. It's a shared spot." I looked at her dumbfounded. "It's part of my driveway." "Technically," she said, drawing out the word, "it extends into community property. You'll need to park inside your garage from now on." I didn't argue. I figured it was easier to stay out of her way. But I should have known better. Because a few weeks later, I got my first HOA violation, unauthorized parking in a common area. $75. Signed by Karen herself. I called the county property office just to be sure. The clerk emailed me the parcel map, and my jaw dropped. The section she claimed as HOA property. It was mine. Fully deeded, officially recorded years before the HOA even existed. I sat there staring at the map, realizing Karen had been parking her car on my land for years. I decided to test her. The next weekend, I parked right back in her spot. Within minutes, she stormed out like a storm in heels. "Move your car now, or I'm calling the cops," she yelled. "Call them," I said, crossing my arms. Her face went red. "Fine, I will." She actually did. That's how the night with the flashing lights started. The cop showed up, checked the county map, and confirmed what I already knew. "Ma'am, this isn't HOA property." For the first time, she didn't have an answer. Just wide eyes and silence. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The next morning, I woke up to orange spray paint splashed across my driveway. Big, bold letters, "No parking. HOA property." Karen stood across the street pretending to water her flowers. "Looks like your spot's clearly marked now," she called with that grin that made my blood boil. I didn't yell. I just took pictures. My granddad always said, "Never fight a fool with anger, they'll drag you to their level and beat you with experience." Later that day, I went to the HOA office, a glorified shed near the park. Inside were Tom the treasurer and Janice the secretary. When I mentioned Karen, they exchanged a look. "You're not the first," Tom said. "She's been pushing the boundaries for years. They told me to bring my documents to the next HOA meeting. If you're right, he said, we'll settle it once and for all." 2 nights later, I walked into that meeting holding my folder. Karen was already there, standing tall with her clipboard like she was running for office. "Here to apologize," she smirked. "Actually, I said I'm here to clear something up." When I handed Tom the county map, the room went silent. Karen leaned over her face, draining of color. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "County records," I said. "You've been using my driveway for years." Murmurs spread through the room. For the first time, people were looking at her differently, not afraid, but angry. She stormed out before the vote even happened. That night, I found a note taped to my door. No return address, just 6 words in red ink. You made a mistake challenging me." The next morning, my trash bins were gone. I found them lined neatly in front of her house. When I knocked, she opened the door halfway. Robe tied loose, smirk ready. "Oh, are those yours? I thought they were community property too." She closed the door before I could speak. That's when something in me snapped. I wasn't going to let this woman intimidate me. I called the sheriff's office and filed a harassment complaint. Deputy Miller listened carefully, nodded, and said, "We see this more often than you'd think. Some HOA presidents think they're running kingdoms." But Karen wasn't done. The next day, I found a stack of violation letters taped to my mailbox, half of them completely made up. Unauthorized landscaping, noise disturbance, mailbox height non-compliant, and in between them one bright pink slip, notice of lien intent. $200. I called Tom immediately. He sighed. "She's acting on her own again. Don't pay a cent. We're calling an emergency meeting." For a moment, I actually doubted myself. Maybe I should have just let it go. Maybe this wasn't worth all the stress, the tension, the sleepless nights. Was I making things worse? But then I remembered the paint on my driveway, the note on my door, and the way she smiled when she thought she had power over me. No, I wasn't backing down. That weekend, I noticed something strange near the old oak tree at the edge of my property. Freshly disturbed soil. I dug a little and found a rusted metal box buried just beneath the surface. Inside were old documents, faded photographs, and a deed from 2009, with Karen's name on it. The sale had never been completed. She'd tried to buy this land before it was developed, but lost it. That's why she thought it was hers. That's why she'd been fighting me like a cornered animal. When I brought the evidence to Tom, he shook his head. "That explains everything. She's been living in denial for years." A few nights later, my cameras caught her creeping through my backyard with a flashlight. She was digging again, same spot. When I turned on the porch light, she froze, looked straight into the camera, and smiled. Then she cut the power. Deputy Miller showed up 10 minutes later, flashlight in hand. "She's losing it," he said. "We'll add trespassing to the case." But Karen didn't slow down. She called an emergency HOA meeting the next morning unannounced. I arrived to find half the neighborhood gathered outside the small office. Karen stood at the front, hair-perfect clipboard in hand, acting like nothing had happened. "We have a dangerous resident among us," she declared, pointing directly at me. "He's been harassing me, photographing my home, trying to intimidate me." I laughed out loud. "You vandalized my property. You faked fines. You sent threats." Tom stepped forward. "Karen, the board has received complaints about unauthorized actions, fines, liens, harassment." Her confidence started to crumble. "That's ridiculous," she stammered. "Show us the paperwork," Tom said. She flipped through her clipboard empty pages. Janice spoke up softly. "There's nothing, is there?" Silence. Then, one by one, the neighbors raised their hands. A vote of no confidence. Karen's face went pale. She tried to argue, but the decision was unanimous. She was officially removed as HOA president. She stormed past me, eyes full of venom. "You'll regret this," she hissed. But for the first time, no one looked afraid. I thought it was over. I wanted it to be over. But that night, my cameras caught headlights creeping down my driveway from behind the house. Karen's car. She got out, flashlight in one hand, shovel in the other. She dug near the oak tree again, then turned and looked directly into the camera, mouthing something I couldn't hear. The feed went black. When the police arrived, she was gone, but they found what she'd been digging for, a hidden hatch covered in vines behind my garage. Inside, we discovered crates filled with fake HOA documents, forged signatures, counterfeit county stamps, proof she'd been scamming residents for years. Deputy Miller shook his head. 15 years on the job, he said. Never seen an HOA president bury her own crimes. They launched a full investigation. Within a week, the HOA was dissolved, the funds frozen, every homeowner refunded. Karen vanished. Her house sat empty with a crooked for sale sign. Then, one morning, a moving truck showed up. Karen stepped out calm, this time too calm. "I'm just collecting what's mine," she said softly. "You don't own anything here anymore," I told her. She smiled faintly. "Oh, but I do." Before leaving, she turned to me. "I left something for you." There was a box on my porch. Inside was an old photograph Karen standing in my driveway years before I ever lived here. Across the bottom in red marker the words, "It was never yours." That night I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me flinch. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed, motion detected on the front porch. 3 slow knocks echoed through the house. Knock, knock, knock. I froze. Through the window I saw nothing but rain. Then, another notification movement by the oak tree. A faint silhouette, someone standing there watching. By the time the deputies arrived, she was gone again. Only muddy footprints and a small brass key lying on the welcome mat. The same one I'd found weeks earlier. Attached was a note. "You keep the house, I'll keep the rest." The next morning, sunlight spilled across the driveway that had caused all of this. To anyone else, it was just concrete. But to Karen, it was her last claim to power, something she'd never truly let go. People like her don't stop until someone makes them. And if I learned anything from this nightmare, it's that silence only feeds control. Stand your ground, because bullies, no matter how powerful they seem, always collapse under their own lies.